Episode 10 of Dragon Ball Daima, Ocean, starts off at the first demon world. Majin Ku challenges Tamagami No. 1 to battle so as to claim his Dragon Ball. As the two begin to fight, Majin Ku uses some unconventional movements that surprises his opponent, though try as he might he is unable to gain the upper hand in battle, unable to do any damage even after landing a mouth energy wave at point-blank range. Tamagami No. 1 retaliates with a display of speed, which Majin Ku is unable to keep up with, and so in the end he admits defeat. He apologizes to Dr. Rinsu, who is disappointed in his performance and fires him. Majin Ku tries to keep in her good books, stating that he is a good singer, fast and would be valuable if he were to be sent out for shopping. Meanwhile, having reached the Sir Warp in the third demon world, Glorio gives out the pin number allowing travel to the second demon world. Without the burden of the air being heavy unlike the previous world, the plane is able to move faster than before, and Glorio says that they should reach Tamagami No. 2 shortly. Suddenly, 5 planes piloted by gendarmerie appear from behind and begin shooting without warning. Glorio performs evasive maneuvers and attempts to fire back but is not used to aerial combat, so at Goku's request, he opens the back door for him. Using his trusty power pole and his key attacks, Goku proceeds to take down all the ships in rapid succession. After reboarding the ship, Goku has no opportunity to have a breather as they are next attacked by a behemoth of a creature coming from the sea below known as a Kraken. Using one of its tentacles, the Kraken grabs hold of the ship and begins crushing it. Goku, Glorio, Shin and Pansy rush off the back of the ship to safety. But Pansy urgently turns back around and goes back aboard the ship after realizing that she has forgotten the Dragon Ball. However, after the ship is being crushed, Pansy becomes trapped and unable to escape. Goku races back to save her just in the nick of time before the plane is swallowed whole. Satisfied, the Kraken heads back into the ocean's depths. Having to make their way by flight, and knowing that Vegeta's group should be arriving soon, they decide to go and wait for their arrival on the Namek of the Demon Realm, which resembles the Namek that Goku is familiar with, but is now completely abandoned after the Namekians escaped many years ago. After becoming hungry, Goku eats one of the Medibugs to restore his stamina, and then senses that Vegeta has arrived. Using his instant transmission, Goku teleports to Vegeta just in time to give warning about the Krakens in the sea and brings them over to Namek. Upon setting foot on Namek, Piccolo takes in his surroundings, finding the place to be pleasant and familiar even though it was his father that once lived there and not himself. Shin explains that due to the Namekians having many unique abilities, thus making them valuable, they were treated as slaves, which is the reason why they escaped some time afterwards. Bulma asks about Shin and why he too left the demon realm, so he explains his story. Long ago, there was a good supreme demon king who wished to expand the demon realm, so he ordered a super Majin named Rimus to create the many universes who, to this day, is the highest authority in the multiverse. Meanwhile, many Majin began to move from the demon realm to live in them, and so Rimus chose a select few members of the Glind race to act as monitors for those universes as the Supreme Kai. At some point later, Abura, a successor to the title of Supreme Demon King, took over and fearful of threats from the outside world, he had a barrier placed on the Demon Realm tunnel. And the Sir Warp who were once able to be used freely now became severely limited. Due to this, many of the Glind revolted against their ruler and escaped from the second demon world to move to the planet Kai, not too far from Rimus. Not long after this, Shin was appointed as a Supreme Kai. After Goku points out that the Glind are born from trees, Shin further explains his kind come from 5 Glind trees, but all of them have since died out. With no other reason to stay behind, the remainder of the Glind also moved into the outside world. When Bulma points out that it means that his race would become extinct one day, Shin confirms it. With no reason to go and see his own home planet, the extended group boarded the now cramped plane and took off, completely unaware that Neva had been on the planet with them. Transitioning to Episode 11, Legend, after boarding the plane, Pansy spots an elderly Namekian making his way towards them. The group head back off the ship to greet him, but the Namekian, after spotting a Dragon Ball, puts on an act, pretending to be senile until Piccolo steps forward and tells him to stop playing dumb. Piccolo recognizes the one in front of him as the legendary Namekian Neva, while Neva finds the one speaking to him reminds him of Katas, who Piccolo says was his father. Piccolo asks what Neva is doing here, and questions him on his actions back on Earth at the lookout. Neva says that he was merely following Goma's orders, and though he knew that Dende would be taken, he was also aware that he would not be killed due to being too valuable. After asking, Goku tells Neva that they are attempting to gather the 3 Dragon Balls from the Tamagami, so that they can ask the dragon to turn them back into adults. The group begin to make their way back on board to continue their adventure when Neva suddenly requests to be taken with them, as a wish cannot be granted unless it were to be asked in the Namekian language. Being that nobody else can speak it, including Piccolo, who has since forgotten due to being on Earth too long, they agree and reboard the plane. Elsewhere, following Majin Kuu's failure at defeating Tamagami No. 1, Dr. Arinsu heads back to visit Marba. They decide to make another attempt at creating a powerful Majin, this time using the remainder of Innocent Boo's essence and the final Saibaman seed, which they plant deeper within the compound despite it being a risk. This new being, named Majin Du, is formed and immediately demands that he be given chocolate. Ku borrows some money from Dr. Arinsu and makes a speedy trip to and from the convenience store to acquire some, squabbling with each other when Du not only eats his own chocolate but steals Ku's as well. Meanwhile, back at the ship, Bulma asks Neva some questions and finds out that Neva stayed behind as he liked his home and wanted to keep the planet safe for if and when his race ever returned. Additionally, he explains that the Dragon Balls were originally created as a reward for his fellow Namekians' efforts, but over time bad people learnt of them and began using them for more foolish purposes. He then created Tamagamis so that they could not be obtained so easily. Vegeta then claims that he will be the one fighting Tamagami No. 2, much to Goku's frustration. Sometime later, they reach the location of the second Tamagami, slimmer than the previous one that Goku fought and wielding a trident rather than an axe. Vegeta approaches and challenges Tamagami No. 2, who is quick to dismiss and mock him due to his childlike stature. But upon spotting his creator Neva in the distance, he realizes that the request was meant seriously and obliges. The two begin their battle with Vegeta deciding to not transform for the moment and is able to hold his ground, though suffers a cut across his cheek, while the Tamagami takes no notable damage. Tamagami No. 2 fires off a sword blast that knocks Vegeta into the ocean below, where a Kraken fast approaches and attempts to inhale him. With a burst of power, Vegeta manages to escape the beast and heads back into the air, but is soon struck by the Tamagami, just as the Kraken emerges from the waters and swallows the Saiyan whole.